Hi, Shamshu.
Hi, Akhila. Namaste.
I'm so excited to be able to do this with you. Thank you so much for taking time off to be part of the Hindu Weekends lockdown with Weekend.
Thank you for inviting me
The pleasure and
to
privilege is all ours.
be a part of the Hindu Weekend. I have been following your previous programs and I really enjoyed them. So I was very delighted that when you asked me to come on board for this evening's conversation.
Thank you, Astadji. The privilege is all ours. I'm just going to take a moment to, just introduce Astadji. Not that he needs an introduction, but just to kind of quickly, just quickly run through his a 5-decade-old dance journey. So born in the year of that India gained its independence, Astad Debboo pioneered a style in contemporary dance at a time when innovations in Indian dance were not welcome. He went on to receive 2 prestigious awards, including the Sangeet Natak Academy Award and the Padma Shri. In a dance career that spans over 5 decades, with performances in over 72 countries, including solo, group, and collaborative choreography with performing artists nationally and internationally, Astad Debboo describes his own style as contemporary in vocabulary and traditional in restraints. As an activist of sorts who has constantly created work that has been inspired and influenced by social norms and the goings-on in society and the world, Astad Debboo has constantly used dance as an instrument of social change. Take, for instance, his work with hearing impaired children across India, or his work with street children as part of the Salam Balak Trust in New Delhi. In form and expression, his work is slow, reflective, and minimalist. But at the core of that expression is a sense of honesty, empathy, and compassion. Astadji, thank you so much. I'm not entirely sure I did justice to...
You did more than that.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to, I read a whole bunch of interviews, some that you shared with me. And, there is that your career has been through many ups and downs. And failure and challenges are not something really, it's not, you're not unfamiliar with the world of challenges. So I'm going to really start off by asking you firstly about, how have you responded to the lockdown? How and what do you feel about it?
Okay, so the lockdown came and it was not a surprise because there had been talks that the nation will be undergoing a lockdown. So one was prepared and I took it in my stride. For me to be at home more than 2 weeks at a stretch is a miracle for the last couple of decades. So people said to me that you must have gone really up the wall. And I said, no. I said, first of all, I am very blessed to be in a very happy home with my sister. We have a large enough space for me to create, to exercise. And so one took it in one stride, because one could not do anything about it. And this is the whole world which has come to a standstill. So you've just got to accept and move on. I mean, there's no point of feeling sorry or getting depressed about it. Each day, as it is a gift, as I look at it, So I've accepted the lockdown, and it has not stopped me from my activities. I've been sort of busy, and also have challenged myself.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that actually. A few weeks ago with your students from across India, you created a work called Boundaries, which was a tribute, you said, to migrant workers. And I watched that work a couple of times today. And, at the core of that work were, expressions of angst, restlessness, also a sense of resilience, helplessness, trapped in a corner, all these ideas brought out beautifully by you and your students who, being in corners of their house. I'm going to ask you really, firstly, what triggered the idea of boundaries? And then I'm curious to ask you about, curious to know about, how did you work with dancers with the limitations of actually not being able to work with them in a physical space?
Right. So when the lockdown began, the World Dance Day was coming up, and there were requests from dancers that please will you record something for us, and then Malika Sarabhai came up with this unlocked dance unlocked. So I sort of participated in that, and then through looking at the news of the migrants, basically was very, very disturbing for me. And then I said to myself, why don't I work with my dancers in Delhi? And I sort of popped the question to them, asking would they be ready to create and do something in their limited spaces. And they were all in unison because they know that going to be working with me is also going to be a challenge for them, which I've always, through the years, that some of them, like Shamshul, Vicky, Rohit, who've been with me for a couple of more years, then Narendra and Pradeep, who are come on board for this particular work. So they said, fine. So I sent them the music. I listened to a lot of music, and looking at the angst and looking what was going in my mind and what I really wanted to convey, the suffering, the frustration, being sort of totally lost. So this music spoke to me, and I sent it to them, and I wanted their feedback. And they all said that the music they could resonate, and they were willing to go on the ride with me. So I said, okay, fine. I sort of said, now each one of you select a corner in your own home. And some went up to their terraces, and some decided to be in their living room. So everybody was on Messenger with their windows open and me in mine. And I said, okay, now this is the way I want you all to start the work. So I showed them the position, went down, and I said, now this is how the work is going to begin. So I sort of gave them the first initial starting point, and I said, now listen to it. And tomorrow let's meet, and each one of you show me what you're coming up with. So everybody went back and sort of they worked on it. And Shamshul, who has been with me for the longest period of time, and he's also like my right-hand man, and I really sort of value his inputs. So he sort of came up. And each one showed their little piece of how they would take it further to the music. And I said, okay, fine, I like Shamshul's. So I told all of them, now follow what Shamshul has done. Now, again, all my work is very, very minimal. And with the minimal, synchronicity is very much there. So they know how to count. And the counting is very, very important, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the flow of the counting is like a very, very slow, but it's very smooth. And as they've been working with me for years, they know what I'm looking at. So, so we started there. Then I said, okay, now we're going to, I want you also, when the part where you see where they are brushing their face on the floor, there again, it's total despair. Like, where are we going to get our next meal, or how are we going to get out? So there's always this angst and emotion which I ask them to think about it while they are performing. Because the rasa which is portrayed is not with the abhinaya, but the rasa is portrayed through the body. So that's very, very important for me. Though I do use my abhinaya, but in this particular piece, I just felt that let the body speak. And then Pradeep, who also edits, so for that gave me another piece of step to go ahead, because he would be editing it, and as he had all the clips sent by all the dancers, then once the dance was over, then one looked at it and one sat on the editing table with him and said, okay, now this seems to be going well, and then he also showed that these are possibilities. So their input was also very much there in making this piece of boundaries.
Right.
And I feel whenever I'm creating with my dancers or even with my deaf performers who I worked with for decades, when they've reached a certain point, I'm open to listening to what they have to say. When I'm creating, it's not just, no, this is mine and I want it this way.
Yeah.
Because they also have certain ideas and their inputs sometimes are full of surprises and very welcome.
For sure, yeah. So it's inherently collaborative in spirit, right? In the entire, right. Astadji, I was curious about, when you had the, I want to ask you, a thinking dancer like you, when you have an idea, how, what is that process that goes through, like until you finally put that idea and give it a certain form and feel, and that it's sort of moved from here to an actual, expression. What is that process like? Why is it important for you to realize that work? And is that process of realizing it and actually seeing it in like a living, breathing form, is that a sort of almost like cathartic?
Oh, well, whenever I started to create a work, and the thought comes to my mind, and I ask, why do I want to create this work? What has really inspired me? There have been, like, for example, my work with the drummers of Manipur, who I've been working with for decades again. And so the first work I did was called Rhythm Divine 1, which was all about their style of drumming and then the drums being removed and my sort of work bringing in my movement. And so I also saw a puzzle which came together once they started also coming on the floor with me. And Guru Satyaban Singh, who was my sort of collaborator, and I would sort of turn to him and say, this is how I'm looking at. And also being very, very particular that when I am using a performing tradition, that it is not watered down. The tradition is kept in its purity, and from there I take it on, and I sort of, it's like a dissolve bringing in my movement. And then again, the process is very, very interesting to see how they also have to listen to the music, because music is very important. And I listen to a lot of music, and when I'm beginning to create, I have certain music which has really triggered off part of the creation for me. So that's when I bring it to them, and now this is what we're going to start off with. And again, everybody has to listen to music 10, 15 times before the music seeps into them. So then once the music is within themselves, then it also becomes easy for them to pick up what I want movement-wise. Then also in the music, they figure out where the change comes. So then that becomes their cue to go on to the next set of movements. So that's how the process begins of
Right.
creation.
Right. Astaji, so in the interview that I watched one interview that you shared with me. In that, I heard one of your students, I think it was Shamshul, and I think he made this beautiful point about sir ke work में, पहले absorb करना पड़ता है, फिर internalize करना पड़ता है, महसूस करना पड़ता है,
Yeah.
and so one has to really, so it's important, like you said, therefore, that all the the people that you work with are also on the same page, right?
Absolutely. Because my dance is not it's not technical. We're not
Right.
trying to show technical excellence. That can be
Right.
shown. But it's the
Right.
feeling, and if you don't feel the music, how are you going to be able,
Respond.
how's the body going to respond? Because it's not like in Indian classical dance that you have movements and you have the beats and you know what you're going to work on it. Now this
sure,
is sort of, it grows organically. And if they are also feeling, then that whole sort of movement comes alive.
Right.
I want my dance to live and breathe when it is being performed, for the spectators also to absorb and be a part of it. It's
Right.
not just when you come to see a performance of mine, it says, wow, look at the movements and look at this and that. But people take something back with them after watching the performance.
Right. Astadji, in this case, for example, this was a tribute to migrant workers. And if one has to, महसूस करना पड़ता है, they have to actually experience that. How important is it for you and for your dancers to really sort of, rub shoulders with the grassroots to really understand what their problems are, right? I mean, it's one thing, we all may be sitting in, homes with absolutely no idea of what's going on. So how do you actually also train your dancers to really feel that connection?
Well, one sort of creates scenarios. They've also been watching television, so they've
Right.
seen, how the migrants have been ill-treated, how they've taken upon themselves to just walk and not wait for transportation. So these are also little sort of scenarios I sort of throw at them. Just think
Right.
that you are in this scenario yourself. You are a migrant and you're trying to get out, and these are young and they are sensitive dancers also. So they
Yeah.
themselves can also think of themselves being in that position,
Right.
in that scenario. So once you sort of transport yourself thinking that, okay, I'm the migrant and I have to get out of it, how am I going to get
What
out?
happens?
What's going to happen? How am I going to take care of my child? Where is the next meal going to come from? So these kind of sort of inputs you throw at them and then let them sort of articulate it, not verbally, but articulate it in the movement.
Yeah, and what's interesting also about boundaries, Astaji, is that there are no facial expressions, right?
Right.
So I'm curious about, you've used your body to communicate, to tell powerful stories, send out powerful, ideas. What is your riyaz of the body? How do you kind of take care of your body? This evening when we chatted, you said you were in your evening riyaz, taking a walk. So do talk to us about that.
Well, my riyaz is sort of, it's very haphazard in ways, but still at the same time, I know what riyaz I have to do in order to keep this 73-year-old body going and ticking.
Wow.
So basically, I do a lot of balance work because as my work has become minimal and very controlled, so I sort of, there are a lot of yoga asanas there. There's a lot of Tai Chi kind of movements of working with it. Then walking, and if I get an opportunity to get a swim, then I go for a swim. So, so each day the riyaz is different. But yes, I know I have to keep my body because as we grow older, we realize that our bodies are also breaking down. You know, one realizes what is my strong point in the way I move, what I moved a decade ago. Maybe I can, but it does not excite me anymore. You know, I've seen it like, okay, that movement for being very fast. You know, it's easier to be done. But if I were to come so that minimalism, that slow, but again, there is a feeling which takes that movement, takes its time. And it doesn't look, I may be wrong, I don't know, but I don't think it becomes boring for the viewer to see this whole sort of movement from one dissolve to another dissolve happening. You know, sometimes you say, oh my God, he started here, but he's already here. You know, so in a way you are hypnotized.
Right.
Yeah. And then you move on to the next one, a gradual one. Yeah.
Right. But Astadji, slow is also a process of evolution, right? Slow
Absolutely.
is harder to sort of achieve, right?
Right. Like a lot of people said, oh, now he's become old, so he's not moving as fast as he used to, so he's doing slow. Then I say, okay, being slow is fine, but to retain that position, you know, like if I'm standing on one leg.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and in standing on that leg and then moving, you know, it takes a lot of concentration and also takes strength to be in that position and not show a wavering leg. Or even if one is deciding to go back, you know, because I'm working a lot with my back these days, you know, so the back is very, very strong. So, and to sustain that back bend for a minute, and then after that, make a slow turn, you know. So yes, there is there's a lot of concentration.
Like also self-awareness, right?
Right.
You you're more in tune with your own body, and you start listening to it with more keenness, I suppose.
Oh, absolutely. You've got to be in tune with your body. Otherwise, I can't do really what I want to do. Or even when I'm spinning, and people say, you know, you spin, and when you stop, you don't go dizzy. What is your sort of secret to it? You know, so, or do you go into a trance when you're spinning? I said, no, I don't go into a trance because, you know, I have to be very much aware of the music. And as the music goes on, my sort of spinning also has to get faster or has to come down, and when it has to stop.
Right.
You stop. And you don't waver.
Right.
So you're constantly also thinking when one is performing, and one is not like in abandon, you know.
Right. Right. Astadji, work like yours, right? Boundaries, you know, your other work also requires a great level of participation on the point. I mean, the audience member also needs to walk a certain mile, right? To kind of like meet. It's not like classical dance where people are familiar with the framework and therefore know what to expect, right? How have you managed to nurture an audience to understand and to kind of appreciate your dance? That couldn't have been easy, right?
Well, yeah. Well, like my very first performance in Bombay, it was in 1979, and I did a solo at the Prithvi Theatre. And there were about 60 people in the audience which came to see the performance. So, and most of them came because they wanted to be there. You know, they were playwrights, they were theatre people, a few friends that show up. And one has cultivated to one's audience. You know, and once I started in the beginning, you know, I had to be also think of how to keep the audience attention, not be very, very abstract. So there were pieces of abstraction, but at the same time, I sort of injected it with some little light pieces, which kept the audience attention going. So yes, through the years and decades, I cultivated my audience. And my audience also, every time I was going to premiere a work, they were expecting something new. And I didn't ever disappoint them in showcasing something new every time that I performed. And in the beginning was solo work, but then even when I started bringing in collaborative work, again, the collaborators were also bringing in a different kind of an energy. Like I've been working up in Manipur for, since 1998. It first started off with the martial artists, and for Kalaripaitu was very, very known, but Thanta was not very well known. And again, to see how I had integrated their martial art practice, and again, they were able to pick up my sort of movements quite easily. And the challenge for them and everybody who's come on board is to work in a very different space, a different idea. So they really had to come, I had to bring them a part of the thinking as to why we are doing, like when the drums were removed, the drummers got very, very nervous. Says, we're used to, I said, okay, then just imagine that this is, you're holding your drum. There's no drum, but this is the kind of movement. So, we're going to, so initially, so once they got into the hang of it, that the drums were not necessary, then it became easier and it started to flow. Yeah. So that's the way I've been able to bring the audience also into the work. So when they come to see, okay, so what are the Manipuri drummers going to do? Or like when I'm working with the deaf, and how are they going to perform? I've been working with the deaf now for 38 years with different groups. And I still remember the Clark School for the Deaf in Chennai, and there were these 8 dancers, all Bharatanatyam trained. Now, when they came to me, they already had a vocabulary of Bharatanatyam. I mean, not excellent, but they knew, So it was easy for me to go, they knew how to do that, or like, they would shake their, they could, so looking at like if you were to bring it here and then instead of going all the way there, and then I would sort of bring it. So it became easy for them. And with this group, I created a 60-minute non-stop work. And for these deaf girls, and it was based on the rasas, now rasas, and I called it contraposition. And each rasa had a different counting pattern. So they were like little mini computers. The first one, it starts off with the bhakti rasa. So it is very sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. When there was the rauta, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that was the kind of music also which was composed with Amit Heri. So each rasa had a sort of a different counting pattern. And at one point, I switched the music off in the Shanti rasa. And the audience then really realizes the excellence of these performers, that so far they've been seeing this dance where music was there, and they never gave it a moment to say that we are deaf. We are performers, we are dancers, we are dancing for you. So that's also when they realize the level of excellence of these young artists. So my other works with the Calcutta Action Players, or in the US that I worked with the Gallaudet University, they were like 15, 20-minute pieces. But with this group, I was able to create a full 60-minute, and we did 75 performances in a matter of 2 years. And there were lots of highlights. We opened the 25th Deaf Melbourne Festival, the Olympics. And the last highlight was when they were invited at the Rashtrapati Bhavan by Dr. Abdul Kalam, and they performed for him and for the invited guests. Yeah, so it was quite something, a great achievement, and I also really felt proud, And again, my working, whether it's with the deaf or it's working I did a stint with the street children of the Salam Bharat Trust.
Absolutely.
So when I'm working with these, I call them kids, but they're all like, teenagers, and now there are adults, but for me, they're still children. And it's not out of pity, one sees talent. There is talent in them. So I'm using myself as a catalyst, to bring that talent out, to nurture it. And because of the fact that through the decades now, I have a certain amount of goodwill which I have generated, people are willing to present it. And that's how the work sort of takes place. And then again, it's not just a one-off work. Like with the Salam Bharat, I started with a work called Breaking Boundaries, where there were boys and girls. There were 16 of them. And when I decided to work on interpreting Tagore, the 150th birth anniversary of Rabindranath Tagore, I selected 8 boys and again worked with them. And then again we toured both nationally, and then I took them to Mexico, Colombia, Spain, Andorra. So all the works that I create, I make sure that it's not just a one-off. There is a relationship which I build with like even today, my very first deaf group of Calcutta, I'm still in touch with them. We're on WhatsApp, and now with Facebook, and even with FaceTime, we're able to look, we're able to sign, Just 2 days ago, I joined in on a birthday party for one of the and with their children, So it's really, it's my family, which I have had.
Yeah, I heard Shamshul and Govind, everybody speak to you about, he's not just our guru, but he's like a parent. So I suppose that's the kind of relationship you form with your students. Astadji, as we speak, I think you're also going to be, I'm not yet sure it's on your Facebook page yet, but you've also created a work that is also a tribute to the Dharavi daily wage workers, right? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, so one of my friends, their constant request, will you do a work for us, for our sort of NGO? And, so Dharavi is from Mumbai. One has been to Dharavi in the good old days, and so when they asked me that we're going to do a fundraiser for the daily wage worker, what would you, can you give us one of your old dances? The organizer had seen my work, Unbroken, Unbound. That was my latest work on Mahatma Gandhi's thoughts. And I said, no. I said, let me create something, And again, it was like, Dharavi has really come out shiny in many ways, if you see under the COVID situation, that they have been, though, social distancing is not possible just because of the numbers there. But still, if you see the numbers today have come down compared to the numbers which are rising around the other parts of Mumbai.
Absolutely.
So I said, okay, so let it be sort of like a prayer, for them, for the upliftment again. So that's what I have done, and it's for a Swiss NGO, which is in collaboration with an NGO of Dharavi, and so it's going to premiere on Saturday, and on Saturday. So, I've dedicated to the Dharavi workers of saluting them for their strength in going on, So like sometimes I've had to counsel some of my dancers or some of my artists in Manipur, and I said this is just a phase which we all have to go through. Maybe it's going to be a year and a half. Things don't seem very bright, but one has to hope. You really can't be bogged down with the gloominess. Yes, one is aware, and it's going to take a very long time. And especially for my artists, because they are really dependent for their survival by performances. They really have, some have now developed skills of teaching, so they're using that and working with sort of, for schools, they're giving a workshop. Shamshul and his wife have come up with a little puppet program. Govind is doing sort of chow dance performances, working. My Manipuri boys, I was talking to them, so one of them has started becoming an auto driver. He's taken to auto driver. The other one is sort of helping his mother in the fish market. He's sitting there with her. So each one has to now find an alternative, but at the same time, they're also feeling frustrated that they're not able to perform or not even able to rehearse. But I tell them in Manipur that in a few weeks or months, there will be weddings which will happen. So they go to perform at weddings. So I said, there will be less number of guests, but you will be there to perform. They are called upon even for birth ceremonies and for death rituals. They're there. So I said, this is a part of life where the rituals will happen and you will be invited. So, one sort of tries to keep their spirits up,
For sure, yeah. Astadji, by virtue of working with, street children with the hearing impaired, what have been your key takeaways? What have they taught you?
What have they taught me? They've taught me that anything is possible. When I came to my street children, they used to do Bollywood dance before, and then when they had to start learning my style, which was completely very, very different, difficult, but they took it upon them as a challenge that hum bhi dekh karenge, batayenge. And for them also, it became sort of, because people, when they had performed, saw them as Bollywood dancers. But now they were going to show their audiences that we are now changed in our movements. And once one of my students, he's an actor now, his name is Pankaj. And Pankaj once, during a Q&A, replied to the audience. They said, when we used to do our Bollywood performances, people would clap and go away. Ever since we started performing with Astad, people come backstage to talk to us, to compliment us. And what I do is now, with all my performers, that once the performance is over, I get all my artists to sit on stage itself. So people can come and compliment them instead of coming in the dressing room and you wait and all. So I sort of created this sort of way of come and greet the artists, meet the artists. So I recall when I was working with my deaf, my Clark school girls, you know, and again, I'm a very hard taskmaster. You know, for me, the disability is not something which I take into account. You know, and I tell them, I said, I do not want the audience to say that, oh, she made a mistake or he made a mistake because he can't hear. I said, that is not going to work. You've got to rise above that, you know. And at times I would push them to the point that I really felt sorry that they would burst into tears, you know. And also, like, you know, I sign, but also they lip read a lot, you know. And sometimes when you're giving instructions, my face would go away. So I've been speaking in air and they've not heard me. And then I would sort of pull my hair, you know, and and then I would say, I'm sorry, you know, it's my mistake. You know? So, yeah, so there are lots of sort of moments which are really sort of very, very touching. And as always, when I work, there is an emotional bond created also. It's not just a bond of you're coming, you're going to learn my choreography,
and then
I have nothing to do with you. You know, I really have, and I continue to keep that link. With some it's more, with some it's less, but that link is there, you know. And yes, in a way also, like they have become my children, and I do look out, and they also feel free to come and talk to them about their problems or ask for advice, you know. I recall once, again, one of Pankaj said that you're so famous, but you're still so grounded. I said, this fame is a very fickle lady, you know. Don't get a swollen head. That even like when you're working and you're going to get applause, but you've got to make sure that your second work takes you and you take yourself on another level. You can't say the first work, we had a great, so maybe if we cheat this time, and I said, there's nothing called cheating or shamming. You know, you as artists, if you're going to be, and you've got to be true to yourself, you've got to raise the bar for yourself. And I said, and I always say, okay, look at me, okay? Look at the way I have raised my bar through the years. And I'm trying to keep raising it. Because that also gives me a personal satisfaction. The fact that I'm still growing, I'm still learning. You know, I'm not saying that after 52 years or whatever, I've arrived, I know it all. No, it's not the case. You know, I don't have that approach to my work even today. You know, I'm very nervous. And basically, I've been working in isolation in many ways, you know, being a solo artist, and then even when you are bringing in collaborators, it's my initiative, that it's my idea, and they all come and participate, but I still have to make sure that
you're still the captain of the ship, right?
The work is to be seen, the work has to be spoken about. I don't have a secretary, I don't have a manager, you know, I don't have Gayatri or Ram or, you know, please talk to them, you know. So everything is, you know, I wear many, many hats. But that was part of my sort of growing up and sort of battling the forces which were really against my work. But it did not sort of, it gave me courage each time I was saying, no, we can't. I said, okay, you can't. I'm sure we can, you know. And I always had this principle. The going is delayed, but not denied. Okay?
Right. Right.
And whatever happens, happens for your good. You know?
Right. Absolutely.
So these are the two principles that even when there's a failure, you know, you learn from it. You don't get sort of, yes, there is discouragement for that moment as to why it didn't work, you know. Even in my earlier days, you know, when I was performing, certain works did not go down well with the audience or even with the critics. And I said, okay, as long as positive criticism, I'm willing to take. You know, but people, our audiences have this tendency that they must speak, they must sound intelligent.
Yeah.
So they will say anything that they want, you know. And I said, you're not
For the
really,
sake of.
yeah. So there I do not pay any attention to them. And I've always had a group of eyes, you know, when the work is in the process, you know.
Observance, yeah.
Like, you know, in my journey, you know, I've had Sunil Shanbag, the playwright, and he's been very much a part of my earlier growth. So he would be always there to give suggestions. He's also done my lights. Then I had a set designer in my earlier days. There was Ratan Butley Boy and a couple of others. So people came, had a look. The late Astad Debboo, the great playwright, you know, he would also always throw ideas at me, and he would come, and he was not an easy person because, you know, dance was not really his cup of tea, but he would watch, and he would really sort of compliment me, or he would take so I always have people after a while coming and seeing, and I recall also that when I was working both with the Salam Bala and my drummers, you know, sometimes the choreography, the piece is performed for a couple of years, and after a while, I get particularly bored with a certain section. And when we come to rehearse, and I said, no, I don't think, I'm throwing it out, and we've got to do this. And they would pick it up. I even recall when I was working with interpreting Tagore, you know, with Shamshul, Avinash, Thapa, Salim, and I would come back, they would start rehearsing, and they would say, sir, humne ye thoda change kar diya hai. So they would show it to me. And I said, okay, it looks good, so let's go along with it. And, you know, so there is a freshness which is brought in. Into keeping the work alive. Otherwise, because unfortunately in India, we are not blessed to, when you create a work, unlike abroad, you can have 8 shows at a stretch. You know, here it's always one off, and then after a week, a month, 2 months, then you get the next platform. So that momentum gets lost. So then again, to get back into that momentum, you know, you need to sort of, and they themselves were so much proud of what they were doing.
Right.
You know, so let's show what we have come up with. And as I said, I was always open. If it clicked with me and if it worked, I said, why not? Because we're looking in the work as a totality, and all of you are part of the work. You know, if you were not there, my work would not come alive, you know.
Absolutely.
So, you know, so that is that's my strength.
Yeah.
Of work, of you know, getting the work out of my artist.
Right. Astadji, I see a lot of comments from people complimenting you about you're a true legend, words of wisdom. I have many more questions, but I'm going to ask you really about, you know, what do you see as a, you know, as a senior mature artist? What do you see as the future of contemporary dance in India? And, you know, what according to you is really the need of the hour?
Well, you know, when I started my journey in contemporary dance, I was a trained Indian classical dancer. I started with Kathak as a young child, growing up in Jamshedpur. And and when I came to Mumbai to go to college, and I did my bachelor's in commerce and economics, and I wanted to continue to study Kathak, but my parents said, no, now it's time to pay attention to more. But I was very blessed. They're the ones who sent me to study as a child, which was very unusual in the 50s for a young boy and being a Parsi to study Indian classical dance. Okay, so I went again with the flow, but I kept my Kathak training going. You know, and whenever there was a college performance, they would always say, "Oh, chalo, chalo, let's call Astad. He will give us a little dance performance."
Right.
You know, so, and I saw that there was a movement of innovation in music, with Ravi Shankar already on the scene, with the Beatles, and then you saw theatre. There was already experiment in the theatre, even in the visual art. But in dance, there was nothing on. So I decided to go overseas, which again, I was very blessed that my parents allowed me to go. And I left the country with a backpack. You know, I sailed out on a boat, on a cargo boat, with goats and sheep. And for 8 years, I traveled and I studied and I came back. And so I came back and I said, okay, now I've got to. It took me 1 year to get a platform to present my work. And it was very difficult for people to say, what is this? We do not have anything of modern dance. In those days, it was called more modern dance. You know, and again, my work was nothing to do with gods and goddesses. You know, exactly. I did a work on drug addiction. I did a work on the nuclear bomb. You know, then I also brought lighter works and did chewing gum, you know, which is just basically, or abstract works with geometric forms or basics of a triangle, a rectangle, and a cube, and wanting the audience to just see how I was a catalyst in moving these objects. And these objects were the ones which were creating shapes and spaces for you to look at and you know, take from what you got, you know. So as time has gone on, the audiences have also been accepting, and I've worked on themes. I even recall my performance in 1972 when I'd just come, you know, and I did a work with the college students of St. Xavier's, and I called it Mannequins and Mannequins. And here I was showing that loving your own gender was not an issue, you know, and the whole ritual of being, it was more like a fantasy. I mean, there was nothing erotic about it. And, you know, they gave me a bath on stage because part of the ritual was I had to be painted to be accepted into the clan of the mannequins and mannequins. You know, so yeah, some of the audience members were taken aback, but also.
Astadji, may I just interrupt you for a minute? The thing is that Instagram has a really strange rule where we will get disconnected at the. So I'm going to request people to log back in. Would you? I'm going to end this conversation and I'm going to request you to log back in.
Absolutely.
You are watching because I'd like for you to finish this point and I don't want it to get interrupted. I mean, get disconnected.
Absolutely.
Sorry about that.
Not at all.
Thank you all. Please do
Thank
log
you.
back in.
Right.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Praveen ji. I'm going to ask him that question that you asked me. There is Astad ji.
Hi,
Sorry
Akhila.
about that.
Can you hear
Sorry,
me?
Astaji, you was, yeah, I can hear you. Please go
Yeah.
ahead. I'm so sorry to have interjected.
No, no, no. So, when I did that performance of, you're loving your own gender,
Right.
and this was in 1972, I mean, I'm
Right.
not really
Yeah.
a big activist and all, but I was making a statement that there are people who exist in our society, and this is how they feel about each other,
Absolutely.
and are proud, but at the same time, at that point, it was not an easy time, So, but again, as I said, this was just a one-off performance that I did, and because of the fact that again, I was at that point feeling very strong about it. So whenever I'm working on any work, the thought really has to grab me, and then from there, my sort of
Yeah.
process of creating the work begins. And then
Right.
I take and I don't draw back. Like somebody said to me in the earlier days that when you go abroad, you do more Indian and you do less, and when you're here, I said no. Whatever I create, I stand by it, and I'm proud of it. Again, people don't have to like everything what I
Right.
do. And
Sure.
even today, there are many who may not agree or like, or they'll say, oh, what is he doing? I said, that's fine, it's your choice. But I have enough people who
Right.
appreciate what I do,
Right.
and that gives me the strength to continue my work, and I feel very strongly about and dance, as Malavika also said, is my companion. She said to you last week.
Yeah.
You know,
That's right.
so, yeah. So for me also, dance has been my companion and will continue to be my companion.
Right. But Astaji, you didn't answer my question about what is the
Oh,
future
sorry,
of
right.
contemporary
Yeah,
dance?
what is
Yeah.
the future? Yeah, correct. Yeah, what is the future of a? Okay, today contemporary dance, the word is so, I would call it blasphemously used, but it's not. I mean, okay, contemporary says what is now, what is that is fine, but the process of the people who are creating, a lot of them have had very little training in any dance form. I mean, I don't say that you have to be an Indian classical dancer, but you train, know your body, you know. For the moment, you may create a work which is very hip hopish or very theatrical, which is fine. Uh, but what is your next work? How are you going to sustain yourself? I said, okay, maybe 2 years, 3 years, but then after that, what? What is your shelf life going to be? And right now, as I see with this COVID-19, so many of these dancers who have managed to form a school and create a work, but again, their work doesn't speak. It's all very, it's entertainment, which is fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong. But for me, when I've danced, I've always spoken about something, and there are a few serious dance practitioners and creators, but still the platforms are very, very few for us in the country. I mean, the Indian classical dance also has its problem, but again, it's been there for decades and will be there. There will be an audience, and even the audience today are evolving also when they come to see a contemporary dance performance. It's not necessary that the performers are just dancing. They are speaking. They're being still. you know, they're working, so it depends on the choreographer. So the future, I hope, but I still don't see a ray of light. You know, I mean, I talk about myself now again, that I don't get commissions. You know, people don't say we would like you to create a work. Or people don't say like, okay, if I have to create a work in the West, you'll be like, okay, then they'll say X, Y, Z, you would like to have that work. That system does not exist in our country. Yeah. So that way, it's still a big effort to make sure that after you create, your work has to be seen. And as you are your own manager, your own publicist, and there I'm getting a little tired, you know, that how much longer will this system be, you know. So one thing nice that the Sangeet Natak, the Ministry of Culture and other platforms welcome the idea of contemporary dance being presented, you know. But then, so then that umbrella, I've opened it, you know, so it's not like my lone journey, which was for over a decade before someone else came on board. And so that way, one has to hope that it'll get better, you know.
Right.
So again,
Thank
like
you so much.
this is just a personal experience of mine of Chennai. You know, like for Chennai,
Sure.
like the sabhas, and it's only the Krishna Gana Sabha which has really always given me the platform to present my work, always under the Natya Kala conference, which began.
That's great.
And then 2 years ago, they did give me a Lifetime Achievement Award.
That's
so
right.
for a sabha to honor me of recognizing my work in the field of contemporary dance. So that also meant good that that all my efforts didn't go into vain.
Astadji, just when we were signing off the first part one of this conversation, Vidya Singh posted that she was at the performance in 1979 at the NCPA when you performed.
Sure, yes.
Also, one of the... Praveen Kumarji he had a question. He spoke about how your fingers do abhinaya. And the question was, what is really the secret?
Well, there's no secret about it. You know, it's the part of our training in the Indian classical dance. You know, and then when one starts working at it, I mean, again, I have been complimented a lot about the way my fingers speak when I am on stage, but it's not consciously looked at how my fingers are doing. It's the flow which comes, you know, naturally, and sort of. So there is no secret. Praveen has asked me that, and yes, and my fingers do speak while I'm performing.
Right. You know, Astadji, I had not planned to ask this question, but because you spoke about flow, I'm really intrigued to ask you this question about, you know, flow is, everybody has their own flow, right? But when I saw your work, Boundaries, there was such a fabulous synchronicity or synchronization. Every single dancer moved in the exact same way. How does one achieve that level of perfection in group work? I mean, to that extent, especially when you know, unlike classical music, which has cues and stuff, you know, the music as well in Boundaries is really so powerful. How does one? You did say that you're a taskmaster and you really like work very hard.
So each one, you know, has to, as I said, the counts are very important. You know, so when they are moving also, in order to be synchronized, if they're not counting, you know, while they're working at it, you're not going to land up when you shoot. So that's also credit to my dancers or to my drummers or to my deaf artists who perform. They all have to get this counting clock going constantly. But as I said, when you are working and you're rehearsing again and again, it then comes naturally. There is a rhythm which comes within you. Yeah, you know, and as Malavika also last week said that, you know, she starts rehearsing her piece a month ahead of time before she's going to showcase it. So similarly, my artists, when we are performing and we're about to go on, even when there is a gap, you know, there is rehearsals and rehearsals and rehearsals. So we are at it. It's not that I come and okay, one day of rehearsals and off we go. It doesn't work that way, you know. So that's also something which I have followed with all my performers and my artists. That even if there is a gap, you know, we have to. We may not be able to work every day, but when we come for rehearsal time, I normally have a 2-week rehearsal period before we go on. Sometimes they start on their own because most of my artists are in different cities and I'm based in Mumbai. And sometimes I'm doing something else before I join them. So they start the work going. And so they at least start getting into the hang of it. And then when I come with my eagle eye, I say, no, that's not what, you're cheating there or something there. So yeah, then we all get back into it. So even working with boundaries, you know, as I said, it took a lot of time for them to work in their space. And again, each one sends their clips. And then it was Pradeep who, you know, the editor really brings the whole piece also alive. You know, I recall the few moments when I have choreographed Bollywood dances, you know, and their choreographing is just a matter of a couple of seconds or a minute and it's a cut, you know, and it's the editor who really puts it together, you know, and with boundaries and with boundaries too, which will come out in the beginning of July. We've just completed a new work with my boys, you know, and like one of my staunchest critics in Athens said, I hope the music is a little upbeat this time, you know. I said, yes, it is upbeat, you know. So, so one is very much also there being part of the editing which is being done, you know, and like even Shamshul, Narayan, Govind, Vicky, who are all part, you know, we look at it and sometimes Shamshul will suggest, why don't we make these kind of sort of windows where all of us should be there, or like, and I'm choreographing now with the camera in mind. When I'm choreographing, I'm looking like I'm the camera. So this is where I said, okay, now this is where we're going to stop, and the next movement is going to begin from there. So there is a flow to it, but I'm now, this is something which I'm learning because I've not really worked with the cyberspace before, though a lot of my friends overseas have worked with video and a lot, but in my case, this was the first time that I've started working. So I'm looking also when I'm choreographing that, okay, I'm looking through the camera because I don't have them all in the physical space at one point, you know, where you can see the total frame, you know. So that's also has been a learning process and will continue to be a learning process for me.
Right.
Also the challenge is, you know, when we're just using the iPhone, you know, we're not having cameras, and again it's all credit to my boys that I say, okay, you've got to film this same movement 2-3 different times, you know, take a close up, take a long shot, you know, and then while we are on the editing table, then we'll see what works and what doesn't work, you know.
Wow.
So.
And all these discussions happen over Zoom, WhatsApp?
Yeah, no, on Messenger,
Messenger, okay.
Yeah. So we have our group, we click on and then everybody comes and then, you know, there's an airplane flying or there's a child crying, all these sort of extra sort of noises. Yeah, and then we have to say, switch your mic off. So, you know, it's quite,
yeah.
It's quite a process.
Everyone's adapting to the new normal in that sense. Yeah. But Astadji, thank you so much for speaking to me. And I'm so glad a few people logged in and were able to listen to you. This interview is going to be available on the Hindu Weekends IGTV as well. And I'll share a copy of the interview with you as well. Thank you so much for, you know, such an insightful interview. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who joined, and congratulations to, I think, Shamshul, Pankaj, they were also, I think they're also logged in. So congratulations on Boundaries as well.
Well, there was Govind and there was Pradeep.
That's
they
right.
all had logged in. Yes.
Right.
Right.
Thank you, Astadji. Have a good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you to everyone who logged in. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.